Hey, everybody, it's Saturday morning. It's been a little while since we've been online. We had to reconnect all our connections. So, welcome into the program. It's Casey and Rex. We're about to go on the air. Let me throw up some of this branding here so you know exactly where we're at. All right, today's episode is going to be about adaptations, talking about how we take different stories and play them across multiple formats. So the first half is all about that. Books that got turned into movies, movies that were made into books, screenplay or stage plays that were made into movies, that were made into books, all that. So we're going to talk through a bunch of examples of that, and then talk about the merits of being able to take one story or a set of characters and see them across a bunch of different outlets. Is there do you have a favorite adaptation where you saw the film and you were blown away because it's just as good as the book or better than the book?
Well, The Godfather, probably.
Godfather.
The Godfather's not that great a book, and there's parts in it that are left out that are just like, why did you put this in here?
Right. But the film's fantastic.
The film's fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
there are times when the film is actually better than the book, and that's definitely it.
Yeah.
And part of The Godfather Part 2, because the opening bits with the history of Vito Corleone is in the novel.
Yeah, I'll go with I like Gatsby. I like both of the iterations of the Gatsby films. So I really like.
There are seven. There's 7 versions.
Okay, so I only like 2.
So the 2 that
I like the Robert Redford version, which I really liked. Initially seeing it, I really liked it. But then I actually really like the Leo DiCaprio version too. And Charlie would say, except that Tobey Maguire's in it because he has like a thing against Tobey Maguire.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
there's a silent film version of it too.
Oh, I didn't see the silent.
I haven't seen it either.
I feel like that would be really hard to watch a silent film of Gatsby.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, which is why you haven't watched it.
Well, I've never seen it available anywhere.
Yeah. So I like that. I thought they did a pretty good job. There's some symbolism missing, but depending on the director, you pick up some symbolism and get rid of the others.
A lot of times, though, I find you take a really great book and you get a stale version, like a sterile or impotent version, impotent version when it's adapted over the film, like Memoirs of a Geisha.
Yeah,
now, that's an amazing book. That's
a fantastic book, and the film was just a letdown.
It felt flat.
Yeah,
it felt like a deflated balloon.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I'll also say the Little Women that had Winona Ryder in it.
Yeah,
which I really like. There were high expectations because she was kind of at the peak of her fame. It was like post Beetlejuice, post Edward Scissorhands. Like this is going to be a really good film, and it was flat as well. And I guess I didn't realize how flat it was. I just figured like, well, maybe that's just the source material until I watched the most recent Little Women, and man, that thing is teeming with life. Like it's got so much energy. It's so beautifully done. The costumes are beautiful.
The 1940s version, right, with Elizabeth Taylor.
I wasn't a huge fan of that version either, and
really?
Maybe, and that's why I thought like maybe it was the source material that just was kind of flat. But no,
Louisa May Alcott, right?
Yeah, Louisa May. But it's
she didn't even like her own material.
Yeah,
I told you
because she was writing women's stories and she wanted to write something more interesting.
Well, she wrote this stuff because she's a drug addict. So she needed money.
Yeah, that's right. You were telling us about her being an opium addict.
Right. And she's like, all right.
If you want to hear the deep, dark, seedy side of Louisa May Alcott, by all means, hook up with Rex.
No, she put out manipulative pulp, as she called it. Or manipulative, she called it pulp. It was like trash or something like that.
So we're gonna talk adaptations this morning
to give her money,
and eventually get into character origin stories, which we probably could have done an entire episode on origin stories, but we're definitely going to bleed over into next week with that particular topic and end up talking about vampires and werewolves. So lots of cool stuff coming up. We appreciate you supporting the show. Thank you for being patrons. If there's anything we can do to help you improve your work or promote your work, by all means, please let us know. And we're grateful to South Carolina Writers Association. We will see you next time.
Has been trying to establish peace in the country by negotiating with political and criminal organizations.
That is the BBC's Phoebe Hobson. Federal wildlife officials are again considering whether a sage-grouse species deserves protection under the Endangered Species Act. The Fish and Wildlife Service announced this week it's reopening a review of the status of the bi-state sage-grouse, which is found only along the.
We always go by the music cue anyway, so it's probably okay. But
are you worn out from wall-to-wall political talk? Instead of hearing more about the stuff in Washington that's mostly out of your control, I'll give you the tools to actually take control of your money and your life. Dave Ramsey here. Join me right here on The Point.
He's the
I'm live and
smart
taking your
money guy.
calls weekdays at 2 p.m. I'll teach you how to get on a written plan that actually works, get out of debt, and build wealth. Weekdays at 2 p.m. The Dave Ramsey Show at 100.7 The Point.
Sonic has something delicious for you. Hey, announcer guy, that's your cue. Try the new Supersonic Double Stack Cheeseburger. 2 juicy, pure seasoned beef patties and 2 types of cheddar cheese, topped with grilled onions, crinkle cut pickles, creamy mayo, and classic mustard on a toasted brioche bun. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely craving that previously mentioned thing. Supersonic Double Stack Cheeseburger. Sonic. Limited time only at participating Sonic drive-ins.
Here we go. Saturday morning, welcome into the program. Casey and Rex here with you in the studio in Columbia, South Carolina. This is Right on SC, brought to you by the South Carolina Writers Association. Good morning, Rex.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing good.
Yeah?
You know what? I think we're rubbing off on certain people in our lives because my wife, she recently got a Kindle.
Okay. I love
and
my Kindle. I have 2 of them. I'm addicted.
I'm not addicted.
Oh,
I'm always
man.
afraid I'm going to break that damn thing.
No.
Really?
Yeah, they're super durable, man. I've never even cracked the screen of my Kindles.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll see if I can break my wife's.
No, don't intentionally try to break it. I'm not saying you should try to break it. I'm saying I've literally carried mine everywhere.
She's been
in there.
downloading all these free books you can get
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
and one of them is Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah.
And she just finished reading, and she goes to me, you know, Anne is such a Mary Sue. I never thought of it before because I read it when I was one of my first girlfriends had it. And I read that
preteen era.
No. It came out in like 1906.
Well, no. I'm saying you would have read it like around teenager era.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know, but she's right.
Yeah.
She's this perfect girl, and everyone immediately falls in love with her, and she doesn't really have any difficulties in life.
Yeah.
If everyone just listened to her, all their difficulties would be solved.
Yeah.
Right?
She's very precocious.
Precocious, and she doesn't want to deal with the relationship because she wants to go on with her education.
Yes.
Eventually, it all works out so swimmingly well for her.
Yeah.
And the boy that she really likes, that she wants to be with, but she has to put aside in order to follow her own personal dreams, is willing to wait.
Yeah, of course he is.
Of course he is, because she's just so great.
Because she's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never even thought of it before.
Our vocabulary is rubbing, our story breakdown is rubbing off on others.
Well, no, it's ruining great classics.
It's a shame, really, that your wife can no longer enjoy Anne.
I can no longer enjoy Anne of Green Gables.
Well,
it was a guilty pleasure when I was younger. I would never admit it in front of the other kids because they beat me up.
Episode 228. I would hope that eventually it's going to sink in for somebody. We've been at this for a while, my friend. Today's episode, where does the story come from? I want to say I started this with the idea of talking about adaptations and thinking about books that get made into movies and vice versa. So we're going to dive deep into that in the first half of the show. Yesterday, I emailed the pilot script for After December as a series to my cousin who works in Hollywood. And he emailed me back and said he's going to take a look at it this weekend and he glad to have it, blah, 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 right? So it was, I don't know why, but that had been on my list of things to do since like January. And I just finally woke up yesterday morning with like the perfect email in my head. And I wrote the email, I attached the script and sent it off. So that got me thinking like, okay, what does this look like? I mean, I think a lot of authors have the dream of their book being optioned for a movie, made into a TV series. We see a lot of Amazon series being developed that came off of books. We're watching Daisy Jones and the Six. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a just kind of a chick lit kind of book. And
didn't read it.
Yeah, neither did I. And let me look it up here real quick because I want to remember who the author is, but I'm pretty sure I've read some other stuff by this author. And anyway, and it's not great. It's exactly what you would expect it to be. And I think that's part of why like Charlie's kind of losing interest in it. But the reason I like it is because it's got all this music to it. It's about this band in the late 70s, early 80s, and like all the sort of interband drama that's going on. But anyway, me see who it's based on. What's the book? Taylor Jenkins Reid. And Taylor Jenkins Reid has published a ton of chick lit books. Like, and a bunch of my girlfriends, we're all on a Clemson girls chat that we all graduated from Clemson together, and they're constantly recommending Taylor Jenkins Reid books. And I never read them because they're just very much like they're not necessarily my style of romance novel, but they are like sort of beach read type romance novels. So anyway, but we're enjoying the show. We just speaking of, man, I jumped right into our topic, but we didn't even get into our film challenge.
Right, our film challenge.
Let's rewind it. Let's talk about that instead.
Okay, fine.
All right, so
every month we challenge each other to watch a different film. I pick a great one. She picks something terrible.
It was not terrible.
I'm just kidding.
You said it was not terrible. So I picked Love Jones for you.
Correct.
Which is a rom-com from the 90s featuring an entirely black cast. Takes place in Philadelphia.
Very 90s too.
Very 90s.
Very 90s hairstyle.
Music.
Yeah. Which wasn't entirely bad.
No, I dig it. Because
the only thing that really bugged me with this guy is some sort of artist.
He's an author.
He's a wannabe author. He's never done anything public, but he doesn't seem to have to work.
Right. He's a writer. He quits his job to write his novel.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't that nice?
Yeah, where'd that money come from?
Right, exactly. And he lives in this beautiful apartment filled with books. And the only time you see him work is when he gets up in his friend's bar and does some poetry.
Yeah, slam poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which
that's
was
actually a good
I think
scene,
it was
though.
deaf poetry, wasn't it?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
That was very big at the time.
It's a good scene though. There's if you are a poet, this is probably going to be a really annoying scene. But if you're somebody like me that barely tolerates poetry, I really enjoyed that scene because I felt like this was poetry I could actually get behind. It's
all right.
Kind of spoken word storytelling
with a couple of belts of alcohol. Yeah.
There's some sensuality to it. It's kind of a seduction scene. It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Right. And then he meets a mentally ill woman.
She's not mentally ill.
She acts mentally ill. She's attractive. That's the only thing she's got going for her. Her personality kind of sucks. Sure, she gets hit on all the time. She's got her imaginary friend who constantly is popping up.
She's in the bar with her. I was thinking about that before because you said that before. So you think she only shows up in the cab, but she's actually in the bar.
She's
with
around, but she doesn't interact with any other character except for Nina. So she's got this friend who you could claim was just her, just the things in her head.
If the movie was more interesting, you're right. But it's not. It's just a straight film.
Oh, no. That's exactly it, man. She's Tyler Durden.
It's not Tyler Durden. Once again,
it's a Tyler Durden in a rom-com, right?
If it were a better film. All right. So just in general, if you have to give it a grade, A through D, what do you think?
Oh, I'll give it a B.
A B, yeah.
Definitely. It's good for what it is.
Not a waste of time.
No.
Okay.
It's good for what it is.
Okay.
And it's a fun movie. And if you like rom-coms.
Yes.
And it's different.
Yes.
Though she does act like a jerk.
She does.
I did like, my favorite part is when he goes to run and catch her because she's getting on the train to go to New York City and he's running after her. And usually that's where the big climactic scene ends and the music swells and he's running through the station to go get her and then he misses her.
Yeah.
Which is what I liked.
Yeah.
And it's not until a year later he sees her again.
Yeah. There's what's interesting to me about it is it's this moment in time where these two people have a really powerful connection, but both of them also have baggage that they have to kind of.
Sex scenes are weird too. They're in positions that you never do in positions that don't seem that you seem like you'd have to have some sort of deformity in order to do properly.
G-rated.
Okay, fine. I'm just telling you. I'm not going into detail. I'm just saying.
All right, so you had us watch Alfred Hitchcock, The Man Who Knew Too Much.
The Man Who Knew Too Much, the classic with Jimmy Stewart and
Last
Doris
week
Day,
we started it
where she first sang "Que Sera Sera."
Yes. Last week we started it at like 9 o'clock and we all fell asleep. And so we started again Thursday night. I thought like there's only like 30 minutes left. Let's go ahead and pick it up. So I go to get to the scene where we had left off, and Charlie and Holly are like, I don't remember any of this. So we had to back it up like another 30 minutes. So knowing Thursday night that we still had a full hour to go, we waited and we did it last night. We watched the other hour last night. And maybe it is because we split it between the 2 weeks. Maybe I don't know why, but Charlie really enjoyed this film.
Good.
He thought the suspense was there. He thought the motivations of all the characters were sound. Like he wanted me to be very clear that he really enjoyed this film. Holly and I, not so much.
Really?
So, yeah, we got to run to break, but on the other side, I'll unpack it a little bit, and the rest of your fan club can hate on me a little bit more. It's right on SC. We'll be right back.
Sorry.
The AARP Frog Watch Network can help you keep yourself and your family safe.
This other guy that I do that other podcast with, Nerd Ragnarok, that I go on occasionally. We're on there, we're unpacking the old Highlander TV series. I told you that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Sound of Music with Julie Andrews?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Have you seen Hamilton?
Yes.
Okay. That was the two that Holly was like, I bet he's never watched these movies. I was like, I don't know,
I
maybe.
saw.
She doesn't
Sound
think of you
Music,
as a musical person.
I'm not really, but I saw that in the theater. It's one of those old-fashioned theaters in Buffalo from the 1920s. The
Yeah.
movie palaces.
Did you see the new Steven Spielberg West Side Story?
No.
It's pretty good.
All right, I'll watch it.
There's a pretty good version of that. Charlie didn't really. I mean, Charlie liked the original better. He's got some nostalgia associated with the original one. Holly and I didn't have as much nostalgia associated with the original one, so we really liked the new one for what it was. People accused him of trying to be too woke, trying to make it about, but I think he was just trying to make it relevant.
Yeah, but I heard that was like the Spanish scenes. There aren't any subtitles.
No, they just speak Spanish.
Well, how the hell do you know what's going on?
You know, it's like opera. You know,
All right.
it's clear. Yeah.
I just felt it wasn't a remake that needed to be remade.
Probably not. But the cinematography is fantastic though, because it's Spielberg.
I'll watch it again. I'll watch it.
Yeah, that's
Normally, that's breaking my rule, though.
to watch the remake.
Yeah, well, I don't watch any remakes unless I did not like the original. I don't watch any remakes. I don't watch any sequels. I don't watch any parts of a bigger universe anymore.
Next week, when we do our like deep dive into working on characters that were created by other people, we should end with remakes that should happen and remakes that shouldn't. Because I think it's the same thing. Like, do we really need another vampire novel? Do we really need another werewolf novel? Right? So, okay, do we really need another West Side Story? So I think that could be the end of the show next week. Saturday morning, Casey and Rex here in the studio, Right on SC. Welcome back to the program. Right on SC is brought to you by the South Carolina Writers Association, where we help authors and would-be authors learn their craft, learn their path to publishing, come up with, all the stuff that's going to make you rich and famous, like Rex and myself. Go out to myscwa.org and find a chapter near you. I actually got an email this week from somebody that's interested in joining, which is super cool, and have talked to multiple people lately that have been, oh man, I found SCWA because of you, so that's super cool. So glad to hear that. myscwa.org, there's room for you at the writer's table. Come out and check out the group. On Monday evening is our COLA 2 group that meets here at Turning Pages in Forest Acres, 5:30. So Rex leads that group. He'll be there with that crowd. And then on Wednesdays, we do our Blythewood chapter. We met this past Wednesday, and I did not take any vampires. Man, I'm going to write this book in the cave. I'm seriously going to write this book without having any input until it's over.
No, you might want to rethink that. The first couple of chapters are the ones that always need to be rewritten the most.
Nah.
Yes.
I'm going to write the whole thing.
All right. That's your thing, man.
I'm going to bring my revisions in because I do have some changes to make to the Blue novel that I'm still going to be working heavily on those revisions too. But I took one of my old short stories into group on Wednesday, and I got some really good feedback on it. So anyway. All right, episode 228 out on the show notes, right on sc.blog.
Man, you knew too much. Unpack that now. Tell us
talking
your
about
wrong
our movie
opinion
challenge.
about why you feel this film was terrible.
Talking about our movie challenge. I did not connect with either one of these American characters, and I thought there was inconsistency in terms of, like, usually you see in a couple, you'll see, the one is always playful and the one is always kind of hard-nosed, or you'll see this kind of there's a specific kind of dynamic that you're kind of looking for. And I never could really put my finger on what the dynamic between these two people were. Like, I couldn't really understand why they were together. There didn't seem to be any real common anything between them. Like, they just were taking up space on the same stage without actually having any real connection.
You didn't feel the chemistry between them.
I didn't at all. And then so the other part of it is her backstory is that she was a performer, but you don't see that. It's very clear that she's not put that aside to be a mom, but there's no, like, is she mad about that? Is she happy about that? Like,
she seems content enough.
This, like, performance piece of her having been a stage performer to me looks like plot device all over the place, because it shows up when exactly we need it.
You feel it's ham-fisted.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, but it seemed like it's relevant for a particular use,
The
but it was
interesting
not
thing
part of her
that
character.
part's not in the original version because he directed both versions of it, the one in the 1930s.
But
So,
Doris Day is the reason that we have Que Sera Sera.
yes, of course.
Yeah.
Because you get a big star, you get Doris Day in there, well known for her singing voice for her. This is her breakout role in the dramatic.
And there are parts of it that seem
But
like
you
they
have to have her
should be amusing or funny, but they just weren't. And I'm not expecting amusing or funny from an Alfred Hitchcock film, but I am kind of expecting it from Doris Day. And so she has this kind of sunny personality, and then she would try to make these little jokes or whatever, but it was just like,
And you felt it dragged?
Yeah, we definitely thought it was slow. Holly and I definitely thought it was slow. Yeah.
And bright and shiny lights.
I mean, I don't know. And again, and it may be because we split it over a couple of nights.
Okay.
And it may be because it was kind of
Really,
late in
you
the
didn't
evening
even
when we
like
were
the
watching
dramatic
it.
scene at the opera. You thought that was
Look,
terrible.
Lord have mercy, it went on way too long.
Wow.
Yeah, I felt like we could get this wrapped up a lot faster than this. And there was a lot of that was the other thing, the opera scene. I was thinking about this last night. When she first goes into the opera, you basically have a series of views. You have her in the vestibule, you have the guy in the box that's the assassin, you have the ambassador in the other box, and then you have the performers, right? But then there was like a fifth or whatever the number is. There's another roll of film that was like random people in the audience. And these random people in the audience are just watching the performers, just watching the performance. Like clearly they have no idea what's going on. And I guess that's why they're there, to demonstrate that most of the people in the room don't know what's going on. But every time they would go to a random person in the audience, I'm like, waste of film. Like, I don't understand why we're looking at random people in the audience. So there was like a whole stream of, and they weren't there, maybe like 3 or 4 times that they would cut to these random audience members, but I don't need to know who those people are. They're not relevant to the plot at all. And they were just taking up space. And they just, and the other thing was the singers, right? And it's like, they put the part of the music, they started at the very beginning of the show. And then we have to wait. Like, I mean, I'm surprised we didn't wait through 3/4 of the show. It seemed like we were watching way too much of that opera. So yeah, and I get it, like, because you want to have them all walking into the theater at the same time, so you have to build it from the beginning, which means you're stuck with the piece, and however long it takes the piece to get to the crash of the cymbals. I get that, I understand that, but for the most part, I was like, maybe you could have rewritten that scene where they were already in their seats, and we're already, a third of the way through before or I don't know how you do it, but just speed it up a little bit, because man, that scene took forever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just a little trivia bit. The guy who played the assassin in The Man Who Knew Too Much was also the guy who played the vampire in the original version of Salem's Lot from the 1970s, which is the film that really scared me as a kid.
Something IMDb will tell you, but you have to ask. All right. So yeah, so that was my assessment. We really like Hitchcock. You gave us, we did 3 Hitchcock films, 2 of the 3 fantastic.
What 3?
We did Rear Window, Psycho, and
okay.
and this. So
well, then Vertigo's next, obviously.
Yeah,
but I'm going to pick something different. Something off the beaten path.
Yeah.
For
something
the next one.
likely to torture me again.
It's not going to torture you. I consider them all good films.
I'm going to ask you if you would ever consider doing an adaptation. If you have done one, right? You wrote the Across the Wounded Galaxy,
right,
which is an adaptation of a video game.
No, it's a tabletop RPG. Yeah, of a game.
Right, a story of a game.
Right.
Okay.
I set it inside that universe.
Right.
That's always a double-edged sword because you have to know, because the people who are going to buy it most are usually the diehard fans.
Right.
And so you have to know that universe left and right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what M. Night Shyamalan's problem was when he did the last Airbender movie.
Mm-hmm.
The only people who watched it were people who liked the comic, and they did a live version of it, but he changed it because he thought he could make it better, and everyone hated it because the only people who watched it mostly were, diehard fans.
Yeah.
So you have to be respectful to the original material. You still had to do something different.
So this is sort of the, I guess, segment 3 or so of this topic on the show notes, because we're talking about the advantages and disadvantages. Certainly one of the disadvantages of working inside somebody else's universe is truth to the source material. Right?
Showing respect, right.
Yeah.
Just showing respect, in some way connecting to it and working with it. Don't go against it. Don't think you know better than that material, because even if you do, people, if it's popular for a reason.
They liked the
At the
original.
same time, you kind of want to have to do something interesting.
I think this is like when musicians get up on stage and play cover songs. Charlie was just playing me a version of Bonnie Raitt singing, singing In Excess. In Excess, Need You Tonight. And Bonnie Raitt sings this version of the song. And she's a blues artist and a great guitarist. And man, she does a great job version of this song. But of course, I love that song. So there's parts of me that are like, meh, it's okay, right? I think anytime you see an artist take somebody else's material and kind of refashion it, it depends on how attached you are to the
different.
original.
You see, that's a little bit different because it's the same song, just done in a different style.
Right.
In this particular adaptation, if you're adapting something directly, then it's the same. If you're using someone else's sandbox, it's a little bit different.
Like stage play to film, right? So we look at something like Glengarry Glen Ross, or what are some of the other ones we put? Fences, yeah.
Or the one I just watched the other day, it's on YouTube. It's called The Big Knife.
Right.
So it came out in 1950. It was Jack Palance and Ida Lupino and Rod Steiger.
It was originally a stage play.
It was originally a stage play, and it really sort of rails on the movie industry.
Right. Well, so what's interesting to me and what was about Fences, August Wilson's Fences, is you see the limitations that the stage would put on it in terms of having, 2 or 3 basic sets. And then when they do the film, you think, oh, well, that's great because you can expand it, right? Like think West Side Story, right? You come off the stage and now you can have him walking through the heights. You know what I mean? Like you don't necessarily have to be stuck on the one stage. But Fences, this most recent version that we saw with Denzel Washington, they didn't do that. They still kept that. And what was interesting about it is like even in the film, you can feel how confined they are and how frustrated they are by this very small space, this like post-stamp size occupancy that they have. And so it was like, clearly it seems to me like a director's choice to still keep a very small set.
Well, again, that's one of the things. You have to remain faithful to the original. Now they did expand it, but there were scenes, there were shots in between scenes, the characters doing things and not speaking.
Right.
So all the dialogue came directly from
the play itself.
From the play itself,
Yeah.
but then they showed the characters doing other things as time moved on.
Yeah. I thought we thought Fences was fantastic. It was one of the Oscar nominations the year that it came out, and we watched that film, and Charlie and I both thought it was just fantastic. And maybe we would have loved the play if we'd seen it on stage.
The interesting thing about Glengarry Glen Ross is everyone always talks about that one scene that's not in the original play, the one with Alec Baldwin. That's not in the original play. They needed to spend the runtime, so he wrote another 10 minutes of dialogue.
Yeah, yeah.
And
that always be closing.
Yeah, and I mean, like, how can that not be in the original? Right? I mean, that's such an important, powerful thing that really sets the tone better than anything else, and it's not in the original.
I want to say my sister and her ex-husband, they went and saw it on Broadway, and I want to say that was the thing where they were missing. They had seen the film multiple times, and so they go see the play on Broadway, and they're like, "Where's the scene?" Because that is, the most famous scene. You're exactly right. All right, what about book to film? So
book to film, okay.
There's just a million.
Done great or done terrible? Mostly terrible.
Mostly terrible, yeah. Although I don't know, I think maybe Daisy Jones and the Six might be an improvement on the book. Sorry, Taylor Jenkins Reid, but
okay, let's go from the adaptation is better.
There have been a few that were really good. Like I really liked the Keira Knightley Pride and Prejudice. I think it does a fantastic job. Now that there are almost verbatim lines right out of the book into the film.
Yeah, okay, that works.
And but I've heard criticism that Keira Knightley was too beautiful to play Elizabeth Bennet. Which
do you agree?
No, because I think I love Keira Knightley, and I don't think Elizabeth needs to be dowdy to be a strong character. I think she can be beautiful in her own right to be a strong character. So
all right,
anyway, I don't think there's anything wrong.
Okay, hold on. Let's start with this. Worst adaptation in your opinion?
Worst adaptation? Oh, Twilight, easily.
Really?
Yeah.
You think really? Why?
Well,
I've never seen the movie, but
they're different. They're different. The book and the film are different. So we'll start there, right? And then the film creates drama that you need to have for a film, but the book has more internal character arc drama, more internal conflict, which I thought was. I mean, it's not a great book, but it's not.
It's a young adult book,
and the film is more like it tries to be more of an action film, and it's not, right? Obviously, it's a young adult romance. So anyhow, we're going to run a break. On the other side, we're still talking adaptations, man. This could go on for several episodes. We'll be right back.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grill, outdoor kitchens, and
Yeah, I figured this whole list would take us a while to get through like all the different types. What was the worst adaptation that you can think of?
I know. I was just thinking. I didn't realize I asked you that, and I had no answer myself. Ones that really stuck in my craw. Maybe The Firm.
Yeah, that one's pretty bad. Tom Cruise.
It's not bad, but they changed things that didn't need to be changed.
To try to raise the stakes. I mean, that's what ended up happening in Twilight. In the film, you get these like little sparks, these little kind of what's the right word for it? Foreshadowing of vampires that are hunting people on the in the area, and you don't really that's not the primary drama of the film. The primary drama or of the book. The primary drama of the book is, are vampires real? Right? That's the big question. And when Bella figures it out that yes, vampires are real, the second question is, can they coexist with humans? Right? And they do. This particular family does in a specific way. And then you get the end drama where this guy James he's a hunter. I read his mind, and he won't stop until he kills you, like for no good reason. There's no good reason why he needs to chase Bella down and put her in danger, but that ends up being the end drama of the film. To try to create some kind of horror film type feel to it, and you just didn't need it.
6 a.m. home. There's a 6 a.m. now on point.
We know you
I don't
have
know.
plenty of options for your baking needs in Columbia, but are you sure?
Can't think of one.
Palmetto Citizen.
I don't know. That's the one. It just I usually don't watch the adaptations, especially if I really like the book. There's got one that I was very disappointed in, but I can't remember it right now.
Moneyball was really good. Friday Night Lights was really good. Trying to think of ones that I did both, where I read the book and watched the film. Atonement
Maybe
was fantastic.
Clan of the Cave Bear. There we go.
I put Atonement on the list because, man, it was fantastic. That's a fantastic film.
Clan of the Cave Bear.
Planet of the Cave Bear.
Clan of the Cave Bear.
Clan of the Cave Bear.
You never heard of that? Okay. Look. Wow. Really?
Yeah,
My father would be very disappointed in me.
I hate it for him, but I'd be willing to bet not a lot of people have heard of Clan of the Cave Bear.
Are you kidding me?
No? Let's look it up.
That's incredibly popular series of books.
Hi,
Are kids' books?
No. They're set in Neolithic times. It's a girl who's one of the first Homo sapiens. She's raised by a Neanderthal tribe.
Earth's Children.
Yeah, that
It's a
whole
series of epic historical fiction novels. And they look familiar to me, but I never read them. Plains of Passage, specifically. Wonder if my grandmother might have owned that. Saturday morning, welcome back to the program. Casey and Rex here in the studio in Columbia, South Carolina. It's right on SC. We've been talking about adaptations, and we're on the show notes right on sc.blog. We're barely through the first segment of the show.
Yes.
So there's
That's
a huge
entirely
list
your fault.
of all these different kinds of adaptation. Well, you asked me if there was one that I was disappointed in. It was Twilight. But the ones that I really liked, I thought Atonement was a fantastic adaptation. This most recent version of Little Women was a really good adaptation. Pride and Prejudice,
There's
I
only
really
so
liked.
much of Little Women I can take.
Yeah, well, it's not for you.
Yeah. Oh,
I
it's
mean,
not for me? Oh, so I can't watch it?
No, I didn't say you can't watch it. I'm not forbidding you from seeing it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
saying
right in
that
that.
it's written for a specific audience, and you're not that audience.
Oh, yeah, right.
So it's okay to
Even
not-
Louisa May Alcott didn't like Little Women.
For it to not resonate with you is totally fine. Like, that's totally fine because it's not really for you.
Oh my goodness.
All right. What about film to stage play?
Film to stage play. You mean reverse?
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever been done. Oh, maybe the producers.
Clueless, Mean Girls,
Okay.
Shrek. Yeah.
What can I say? The only one I've seen that's gone the reverse like that, 'cause it's usually the opposite.
Yeah.
Because the films cost so much. But I would say the producers the only one I know of that I saw.
Yeah.
Maybe Phantom of the Opera. There we go.
Yeah.
Phantom of the Opera, because the original book by
That's
Gaston,
a book to stage play and then
and
to
then
film.
yes,
Yeah.
well, yeah, book to film, because they filmed the original one in 1929 or 28, 29, and then The book, Gaston Leroux's book, originally did come out in the 1920s.
Then Andrew Lloyd Webber writes the music to go with it,
Right.
and it hits Broadway. It just closed recently. Did you know?
What, finally?
Phantom of the Opera. Mhm.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, they had their final performance on Broadway. 40 years or something they've been there.
Some ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it's been a long
We used to
time.
go, we never went to Broadway. We always used to go to Toronto to watch it because that was near where I grew up.
Yeah.
And it was Pantage's Theater that they rebuilt to do it. And they had these commercials all over the place. Call Phantom by phone for your Phantom of the Opera tickets.
Man, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's exactly what you paid for.
Yes.
I mean, you go see it, you're getting exactly what you paid for. It was good. All right, what about stage play to book? And I wonder if these Shakespearean rewrites would work like this. So, like, if you take a stage play, something written for the stage, and then you adapt it into a novel.
Oh, I don't know. A lot of his stuff was adaptations of other material.
But if you take some concepts like Taming of the Shrew, or a concept like what is it? The Comedy of Errors.
Love's Labor's Lost, one of those.
Yeah, these kinds of things where it's the same story, it's just reconfigured for, a book or a film. Would that count as an adaptation?
Yeah, I don't see why
You're
not.
like, yeah, this is basically
wasn't
Hamlet.
Clueless-
Thank you, Lion King. You're basically Hamlet.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember too much of it.
I think
I don't think there's too many versions that are really done that way.
when we've got a whole list of like different types of adaptations, but let's just kind of get to the point of it, which is what are the advantages of taking these stories and seeing it in different mediums? Like, what makes it great? What makes us excited? Like, I don't even play Dungeons and Dragons. When I saw there was a Dungeons and Dragons movie, I was like, heck yeah, I'd go for that.
Several of them.
Yeah, well, the
Most of
most
them are
recent
terrible.
one.
Okay, good. What about it?
Like, I'd go for that.
All right, maybe.
A couple of actors that I recognize in it.
That's
Some
not.
decent
Again,
good
that's
CGI.
kind of like the adaptation I did. That's such a broad brush. You could do anything in it. Really.
I would say the film Ready Player One, which was come off a book, right? I thought the film was really good and the book was really good, maybe separately. The book had, you and I talked about the book. It's been several years ago since we talked about it, but the way it's told, all the action takes place off camera. It's like people come running in the room and they tell you what happened somewhere else.
Yeah, that's
is
kind of like the original version, the original adaptation of Dracula. That was adapted from the stage play. So you see all the actors standing around going, "Look, a wolf is running across the thing," and you don't see the wolf.
Yeah. So but you said it was a style, like a kind of style, a particular kind of like science fiction style or something, where the action would take place off stage and people would come in and tell us about it afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of enough because you couldn't say it's not just that's just not science fiction style. That was the stage style of the time, comes mostly from the Victorian era.
And then in the film,
And then books would sort of adapt it along those lines too, because like if you look at the Sherlock Holmes stories, you see everything from Watson's perspective.
right.
Then you see a whole bunch of weird events, and then they're eventually explained afterwards by Holmes.
Right. And then, but the film for Ready Player One, you're right in the middle of the action. You're watching it all happen and unfold as it's unfolding, and that was, really compelling. I think that's more of a modern storytelling, is to put people in media res and like get them, really behind the character, watching through their eyes everything that's unfolding.
My wife just said she hates Little Women, so it's not just me.
Okay.
It's not for her either, huh? Huh?
No,
I'm
it
just
probably
kidding.
is for her, and that's okay too.
Okay. Well, you see that also in the idea of all the action happening off stage in the original, not the original, in the Humphrey Bogart version of the Maltese Falcon,
Right.
where what happens on screen? It's a series of people talking to each other,
Yeah.
and you see everything after the fact,
Yes.
and it's bizarre, but yet the tension never fails.
Right.
I mean, it's so good, so well wrapped around. You don't even notice the fact that it's a series of people sitting around.
Until afterwards, where you're like, you never actually saw these things happen. You just
Right.
heard people telling you about those things happening. And in the retelling, the tension was so good that like you didn't miss the fact that
Because
you
there were
missed
so
the
many
action.
lies too. You didn't know what was real and what wasn't.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever got the real story.
So what I think is really exceptional about telling stories across multiple mediums is that number one, you can reach a different audience, right? So if you've got a film that gets adapted into a book, so Holly's been reading these books that are out of the Star Wars universe. There's just multiple series out of the Star Wars universe that take different characters and play up their backstory or show them, it's a trilogy on Padme that talks about her becoming queen and then becoming senator and kind of gives you all of Padme's, teen angst and all that, which is, it's appealing to a 15-year-old reader.
Right.
And so you get to learn more about Padme and understand a little bit better, how things work on Naboo, what their political system looks like. Holly was really interested in those. And now you have new creators here too. So that's number two. Like number one, you're getting into another audience because it might be people that don't watch films but do read books or vice versa. And then number two, you get these new creators. So this writer who wrote this, E.K. Johnston, now has written in this universe before, and this is an author now that Holly might go and look up other things that this writer has written and pick up her original work. She did that with Sarah Maas, who I found Sarah Maas through the Throne of Glass series, but she wrote a Catwoman book, and Holly got it for Christmas, really liked it. She's like, yeah, this author's really good. I'd be interested in seeing some of her original stuff. So I think getting those new creators involved is really exciting too. On the adaptation side, being able to expand the universe,
Right,
and get new creators and new audience members.
yes and no. Seems to be a double-edged sword nowadays.
How so?
Well, a lot of those expanded universes are now losing money. People aren't responding anymore. Maybe it's just too much oversaturation.
Wow, there's a little of that. Yeah, Star Wars.
Well, yeah,
I mean, Disney is milking Star Wars for every single possible story it could possibly tell.
It used to be an event when a new Star Wars came out. Now it's just Tuesday.
Speaking of, are you going to go see Return of the Jedi tomorrow?
Return of the Jedi?
Mhm.
Where?
It's over on Bauer Parkway at the Columbiana Grand tomorrow.
We got the Rosé Festival tomorrow. We're going to be sipping wine all day.
Fun.
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to go out there. Our Regal pass actually qualifies for it, so we're going to go since we've already got.
I've seen it. It's not my favorite one.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to see.
Is it the original or the restored one where they threw in a whole bunch of stuff?
I'm not entirely sure. It's probably the restored one. I mean, mostly.
Well, not the restored one, the butchered one.
Mostly George Lucas says that that's his preferred version, right? So if that's the one. If they're going to do a theatrical re-release, I
don't trust his judgment anymore.
He's an old man.
Well, before that, if you look at the original rough cut of Star Wars, it was terrible. I don't think when he's totally in the reins, his judgment's not good.
Yeah.
I think it's good when he's got someone else helping to direct his vision that he can't just immediately override. This is the guy who brought us Howard the Duck.
One of the challenges with doing adaptations is the contradictions, and so when you say that, it makes me think of the most recent trilogy, the last three films, 6, 7, and 8, right? No, 7, 8, and 9.
Whatever.
Anyway,
I know what you mean. The one with Ray.
Yeah, with Ray. Our favorite Mary Sue.
Right.
These last three, they killed a lot of the canon literature that was out there. So, and I had to get.
They did. They said, okay, all the because it researched back in the 90s, a whole bunch of material came out. Don't forget there was Star Wars. There was originally a Marvel comic series that ran 120 issues.
Yeah, Luke had a wife. Her name was Mara Jade. And Leia and Han actually had 3 kids, not just one.
Right.
Yeah, so these things that were existent in the comic book series were completely ignored.
They bought out the rights. Well, the comic series was different from the other extended version anyway, because there was nothing else going on, so they could make up whatever they want.
Right.
Don't forget, they had a giant anthropomorphic rabbit as a companion for about 50 issues.
Anthropomorphic rabbit, like Harvey?
Yes.
Nice.
Only it was real and he shot lasers.
Nice.
Okay, so I swear
I feel like this is part of the Star Wars lore I could get behind.
Right. So they took, but the problem is the headache, right?
Yeah.
And most people hadn't read it, and it's like, oh, you got to remain, So they said, okay, all this other stuff is no longer a thing. We're just going with the films and then building off of that again.
Yeah.
Some people got angry,
and then
obviously got angry because they spent a lot of money on something they think isn't real anymore, even though none of it's real. And then, but they all went out and bought the new stuff.
But these 3 films, 7, 8, and 9. Basically recreate 4, 5, and 6. I mean, these are almost exactly the same story. You see the hero's journey.
Not as good.
Yeah, exactly. You see Rey cast as a hero's journey story, just like Luke Skywalker in the first one, right? You see this battle of family and the dark side suchness in the second one.
The first film of that series was good right up until Han Solo showed up. Then it went downhill.
Then we get to the final one, and it turns out the big bad is the same big bad from 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
Like, come on, man. Are you kidding me right now? So, yeah, I don't know.
That was just thrown together. I mean, obviously they didn't have a plan. They said, "You can do whatever you want."
Yeah.
Then they come out with that next one that everyone hated. I don't remember anyone enjoying it. Maybe there was a few, but no
I
one-
did. We liked the adjacent one. So like we really liked
Rogue One.
Rogue One. That
That's
was a
the one
good
they're
one.
still building off of now.
We liked Han. I loved seeing how Han and Chewbacca became companions. That was a pretty interesting story. Like some of those are pretty cool. All right, we're gonna run to break. We're like barely trucking through our show notes today, so
Right.
we've got quite a few episodes available to us. We'll be right back. It's just one more break, and right on SC.
Hello, this is Stacy Huff, host of Huff Nation Sports Zone, each and every Saturday.
Yeah, so then it seems like we go into May, and we can do these backstory conversations in May.
Sure.
I've got.
Check it out.
There's
Brandon
one.
Moran here. Now
I think there's
listen
one Saturday.
closely to what I'm
All
about
right.
to
At
say.
the end of
I'm a
June,
business owner, and
for
many
parts of
you
July, I
listening
will be
right
on
now,
vacation.
You're business owners as well. The first rule in owning a business is
Ugh,
this:
I'll be
don't
going to
waste
Buffalo
money.
for about
I
2
see
or 3
business
weeks.
owners waste
It
their marketing
is-
dollars all the time. Not me. I figured out a long
Oh
time
no,
ago.
I was
10
thinking May
years ago to be
20th,
exact,
holidays.
spending
Oh
my
no, the
marketing
27th,
dollars
Memorial Day
was
weekend.
not only intentional, but
I'm not gonna be here
extremely
Memorial Day
profitable
weekend.
as well. If you're a small
So we can
business
try to
owner,
When is Memorial Day weekend?
the 27th, 28th, and 29th.
ask him to create
Right.
a custom
I'm going to
marketing
Florida to
plan for your
party with my sister.
business. He's looking for folks just like you who believe in local to partner with him in 2023 and beyond. Trust me when I tell you, partnering with The Point works. You will see results and your marketing budget will no longer be wasted. Give Kev a call at 803-563-8558 and tell him the Money Coach sent you.
Join us weekday mornings at 7:31 a.m. for Straight to the Point with Pastor Steve Williamson. That's Straight to the Point. Weekday mornings, 7:31 a.m. here on The Point, 100.7 FM.
Add some sizzle to your backyard with the new
So I think we take this character origin stuff, which is segments 3 and 4, and move that to next week to episode 229.
All right.
And then the episode after that, we can dig deeper into vampires, werewolves, and fairies and other things that like have lore around them. And if you're going to write those kind of witches, you're going to write those kind of characters, you got to kind of respect what's been written about them before.
Yes and no. If it's a fictional character, I feel like you can change on it.
Yeah, man, because vampires aren't real. So
Right.
who cares what they say about
And
vampires?
no one, everyone, all the big ones, big stories have always redefined them.
The big ones usually did change it up significantly.
Right.
That's why they became big.
Did we just say that over
Saturday
there?
morning, Saturday morning, Casey and Rex were having an off mic conversation here about an episode that's not coming for 2 more weeks. So we'll just save that conversation for then. Episode 228 in the show notes, right on sc.blog. We got to about segment 3, and so what we're going to do is take segment 3 and 4, which are all about character origin stories, and bump that to next week. And we're going to spend the last little bit of today finishing
Still
up
talking
our,
about these adaptations.
about adaptations.
All right. For me, the interesting ones have always been, converting a book, because that's all I do is read. And the film actually is better. Now, the big one for that is obviously The Godfather.
Right.
And it's pointed out, if you list the top 10 films, The Godfather is usually among them.
Right.
List the top 10 books, it's almost never, The Godfather is almost never listed among them.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know what it is. I just don't. Mario Puzo's great. What is it? Potboiler stuff. But and it hit at the right time. Everyone was talking about the mafia. That's when he wrote it, because he wrote that and he wrote the Valachi Papers. But if you remember, the Valachi Papers was made into a film with Charles Bronson, and it's terrible.
Right.
And it came out the same year as The Godfather. So it's fascinating looking at those two. The other one I want to mention is a British book called House of Cards, for which there was a British and an American adaptation. The one American adaptation was
Kevin Spacey.
with Kevin Spacey, but it was originally a British TV series with Ian Richardson, which the British one is amazing. Some of the best. There's like 3 hours of British television I've ever seen. It came out in the late 90s, early 90s.
Is it about British politicians?
Yeah, it's about British
Okay.
politics, and they adapted it to American one, obviously, and they changed it around because
Right.
they, out of necessity, had to. But the book itself is interesting. It's a little sleazy, but the adaptation, and you can get, if you got Amazon Prime, you can watch it there. It's just amazing.
The British House of Cards.
The British version of the House of Cards.
Okay.
Right.
We watched the Kevin Spacey version. We really enjoyed it. I mean, Charlie
Really?
and I
So you
were,
might like the British
we
version.
were kind of binge watching it. There were things that were shocking in it that I thought were fantastic, things that you really did not expect to happen. And when they took that turn, I was like, holy cow. Speaking of which, didn't you recommend The Diplomat to me?
No,
Oh. Somebody told me to watch The Diplomat on Netflix. I thought it was you.
that was not me. I haven't
Anyway,
seen
I
it.
watched the first episode. It was pretty good. So we're going to keep watching that. It's got the actress that played in The Americans.
Right. Actually, right now I'm watching Fargo, the TV series.
Yeah, we watched the original.
I watched the original one too, and that's a weird adaptation.
Yeah.
Because
I didn't see I didn't read the book, so I'm not entirely.
it's not a book.
No, you mean film to TV?
TV
adaptation.
series.
Okay, gotcha.
Because usually those are the worst of all. When they try to take a popular film and then dilute it down into a TV series.
I think Fargo did a great job. Don't they have 3 different versions of it?
No, it's not. It's taking place in the same universe, but it's not the same story.
Right.
And I thought the first season was going to be that same story, but it's not. It plays off the film.
Yeah.
And each it's sort of an anthology series because each season is a different set of characters.
I mean, like I said, it's been a long time. When it first came out, we watched it. We watched
Right.
that first season, and then I think Charlie might have watched the second season, but I don't think I watched the second.
Well, that's how you
season.
do it. You take the original idea and then you build on it, but you don't have to rewrite lots of large portions of it.
Well, let's talk about that though, because sometimes that is borderline fan fiction, right? Where you take something that you really liked and you build out a piece of it that maybe the author didn't get to or the author didn't do.
Right.
And there's a lot of sort of anti-fan fiction sentiment out there. If you think, where sometimes fan fiction
Well,
takes itself into
that's-
places that the author goes, cease and desist, please.
That's why you get so many flops when you adapt a movie, a beloved movie, into a TV series. Remember
Do you need to continue engagement with the original author? Is that what would make it a success? Because the
I
Fargo
don't think
series
so.
was developed with the Coen brothers, who wrote the original film.
Right.
So when they go to develop the series, you're going to be pretty true to the source material because
it had the
those
same
guys are
feel
involved.
to it. It does. Okay, it does have the same feel to it. I think it was. I think that it's a type of television that couldn't have been done back in the past.
Right.
Sometimes you just need to rearrange it, but then you get these weird adaptations. Do you remember the TV show Alice?
Yes.
Where the woman goes, "Kiss my grits."
Yeah.
That's
Flo.
based on a serious movie.
Really?
It's called Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. It's about a woman,
Leaves her husband, takes her kid.
yeah,
goes to work
trying
at a
to
diner,
make a career, and it's like a rundown, trying to rebuild
but
her
it became
life.
a sitcom.
It's a serious film, and then it becomes this terrible 80. I know as a kid I loved it.
Yeah.
Now I look at it and go, man, I was an idiot when I was a kid. But
Speaking of those,
it becomes with a stupid catchphrase, "Kiss my grits."
But speaking of those silly things, though, like we watched an episode of the Patty Duke Show last night. We watched the pilot episode of the Patty Duke Show last night because Holly was interested in the way the film was split. Right, you have 2 actresses playing the same, or 1 actress playing 2 roles. So what is that going to look like on a sitcom, right? And so we watched that last night, and yeah, I think.
Cousins,
the same way.
other cousins.
Yeah,
they look like they talk.
Identical cousins, and you'll find.
Why not? They're both Patty Duke.
Yeah, exactly. And so, Holly had asked me, she's like, if 2 sets of twins get married, is it incest? And I was kind of laughing. I was like, well, that's how the Patty Duke cousins become twins, is that their moms were twins and their dads were twins and they got married. She goes, really? I go, must have been.
Yeah.
And I think there's some episode, like maybe in the first season or second or third season, where the parents, the Kathy's parents actually show up, and you do see that there's like 6 sets of twins, 3 sets of twins, 6 people, on the TV. But anyway,
You've stumped me on trivia for once. I
Patty
don't
Duke
know
show.
that much into the Patty Duke show.
My sister and I loved it. It was on Nick at Night when we were coming up, and we loved it. And so then, of course, I was doing what you were saying about watching this, and I'm like, why did we love this show? Like, I really don't understand why. But it might have been because we were 13 and these girls were 16, and we thought they were kind of cool teenagers, at least in the 60s.
Yeah, and it wasn't the same amount to watch nowadays. Yeah.
I was interested in the video game to stage play adaptations.
Okay, I've never seen any of that.
I know. And then I look it up. I'm like, has a video game ever been a stage play? And sure enough, there was a stage play called Chomp, a Pac-Man musical, which was interesting.
That I could see. I've seen some weird ones. That came on the 80s.
It's a me, Mario.
Yeah.
So there was a Mario Brothers stage play as well. It's a me,
Usually
Mario.
it's a parody. I mean, there's been weird stage plays in the past. There was a Superman stage play
So
musical.
the Trail to Oregon was in fact a parody. The Trail to Oregon was the Oregon Trail, right? But the
Right.
beginning of the show, all of the audience members get to name the characters, right? They get to shout out names and they name the characters. And at the end of the show, the audience votes on who dies.
That's interesting.
So-
Dies of dysentery.
Yes.
Man, I can't tell you how many. I
That's
never
right.
made it through. I never finished the Oregon Trail. Everyone always died. Usually they drowned by trying to ford a river.
There's a link in the show notes if you're curious about it. If you're an Oregon Trail fan,
So
and you're curious
anyone,
about this,
we've
hit the
all
show
played the
notes.
Oregon Trail as a kid because that was the only video game where you were allowed in.
We didn't own it, but Tammy's mom did, and Tammy's mom was obsessed with
I
it. So we used to
I
play
would
it with
play it
Tammy's
in
mom.
at school all the time.
Yeah.
Then the lemonade stand.
Yeah, it's like 8th grade, 9th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade time frame. Yeah. But anyway, and then the video game to book, which I thought was interesting too, Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell
Yeah.
came out of a video game, and Halo, Ghost of Onyx. There's a whole Halo series of novels that are based in the Halo world.
Yeah, there's a bunch
and
of Elder Scrolls novels. Yeah, that's okay too.
Assassin's Creed, things like that.
Yeah, never really got into that.
Film to video game, Harry Potter.
I'm a video game guy, but
Did
I never
you-
read any of these books.
Do you ever play any of the video games that were like film to video game?
Like what?
Like Spider-Man. Like Holly's got the Amazing Spider-Man that she got for PS4, and the voices and the
Play the
storytelling
Batman
and all
video
this.
games.
I mean, this is a really cool looking video game. It kind of looks like a movie itself. The graphics are so good, and then you're playing Spider-Man, so that's pretty cool in it. Yeah, film to video game is kind of a cool adaptation as well. And then I thought this was interesting. I'd completely forgotten about You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown.
Oh yeah, I love
Comic
that one.
books to stage plays.
Okay, yeah. Again, that's the Superman one that was done in the late 70s,
Yeah.
I believe. I believe there was a Spider-Man one done too.
Yep.
One of my favorite experiences was the Evil Dead, the musical.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Jody, my friend Jody Kane Smith, who got me into SCWA, she starred in Evil Dead the musical at the theater here in town,
Oh,
at
really?
Justice Theater. They did a show of Evil Dead the musical, and yeah, and we went and saw it. She was
Which is
fantastic.
hysterical.
It was right when she found out she was pregnant, and she was having to vomit on stage, and she was like, I was like really actually like legitimately vomiting on stage.
Art imitating life.
Yes, Evil Dead the musical. That's a pretty good one. And then the other one I had here was comic books to video games. So of course, Superman, The Amazing Spider-Man, Alien versus Predator, where you see comic or game designers going to comics for source material.
Usually those are terrible. Because they're cheap, they're knocked off. I mean, the very first one ever done with that was a comic. It was a movie to kind of video game, which is E.T.
Yeah.
Which came out in the 80s, which was nearly bankrupted Atari.
So when you think of something
But
like
they
it,
just-
like
they said
E.T., right?
They uncovered that hole in the desert with about 3 million copies of E.T. unsold copies of E.T. the video game.
It took down Atari.
Oh yeah.
When you think about something like E.T., right? These big blockbuster movies, it's almost
Because they're usually cobbled together. They're usually terrible because they have nothing to do with it. They're obviously cash grabs. I remember it was The Watchmen. When Watchmen the movie came out, there was a video game adaptation. It was god awful.
But so it's a sense of like, okay, we've got plushies, we've got T-shirts, we've got coffee mugs, we have pencils. We need a video game.
Right,
Like it's on
but
the list of
hackneyed and thrown out.
marketing materials, as opposed to it being a well-developed game that simply borrows the character. So I would argue that like the Amazing Spider-Man video game that Holly has is a well-developed, beautifully
That's because, but it wasn't
created game.
come out because Spider-Man's a known marketable thing, right?
Right.
It's going to be known now. Or
It's not
5 years from
adjacent
now.
to the films. It's not
Right. It
part of the
doesn't have to
marketing
come out
effort
in
of the
a
films.
very short timetable adjacent to this specific movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So it kind of depends on what the purpose of
Right.
the comic
I mean,
or
don't
what
forget,
the
there's
purpose
been
of the game is.
adaptations afterwards. I mean, there was an adaptation of The Godfather into a video game.
What?
Yeah. And
Just
The Godfather Part 2 about 10 years ago.
making decisions about who to kill,
Yeah.
who to leave fishes to, right?
Yeah, mostly run around and shoot people. I mean, that's what most of these games are.
A first-person shooter game based on the mafia.
Yeah. Well, you play a member of the Corleone family and you carry out missions, and it's adjacent to the film. They show clips of the film.
That's the end
And
of the
then-
show.
Oh, okay.
All right, next week we're gonna do character origins. Don't go away. Actually, Stacey Huff is next. Don't go away.
Tired of all the checking account fees and stipulations from large national banks?